you're on the call for Discover Dowsing, and we are here with Clifford Michaels, who is the author of Harnessing the Heavens. And since with my computer and all my notes being on the upstairs computer, I am talking from memory. So hopefully I do not botch anything up. We have a few announcements. We have the speaker registration forms on the website now and at dowsers.org. We have 2 other teleconferences coming up next week. On Monday, Raymond Grace is speaking, and on Tuesday, Alicia Ayrton. So that's it. So we're very blessed to have Clifford Michaels talking, and you should all have received the newsletter listing his talk. So Cliff has spent about 30 years, I understand, Cliff, is that correct, in Wall Street?
That's true.
As a trader, and now is a financial advisor. And what happened is that he had a wake-up call, as many of us have had, with kidney cancer. And as a result of it being the type of cancer that physicians don't know very much about, he was left to his own devices to look for for healing so that it would never come back. And in the process, joined a spiritual meditation group.
Correct.
And got involved in a whole lot of holistic things that included dowsing. And would you like to, Cliff, tell us a little bit of how you made this transition from being a very traditional financial advisor to what you're doing now?
Right. So I basically went from using my left brain to using my right brain. And that was a very good introduction, by the way, Roxanne, for not having any notes, because you actually hit it right on the head there, that I was left to my own devices, because kidney cancer is a very small percentage of the cancers that are out there, although it's a pretty fast-growing cancer in the Western world, which leads me to kind of think that it has something to do with pollution maybe. But regardless, I was willing to try anything and everything, and ended up really just stumbling on a meditation circle. Didn't really know much about it, but I figured if I had kidney cancer, my adrenal glands are probably overactive. Meditation would probably help. But what I didn't realize, it was really a spiritual circle, which is a circle that's also designed to raise your vibration and to open up your chakras. And lo and behold, I discovered there was another reality out there, which many of us are aware of at this point on the call, I think. But at that point in my life, this was about 2007, it was certainly a shock to me. During a meditation, I thought there was a hand on my back, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but so did everyone else in the circle think that there was a hand on their back. So I realized I wasn't alone, and I was open. That's a key ingredient, by the way, to working both in dowsing and spiritually. I was open. My mind was open to accepting anything that might, be occurring. And the next thing I knew is I continued to, develop and evolve and open up to the other side. And sometimes it's a calling, sometimes it's accidental, but we're all here to serve, So what ended up happening to me is I was sort of encouraged, if you will, by both my teachers and the spirit world to write about it. And I figured if I knew this, and I was the last to ever believe in any of this, that I thought the information was too important to hold to myself, so I wanted to share it. And so I wrote the book. It's called Harnessing Heaven. And, what we're going to talk about tonight is clarifying your life purpose, and that's part of the book, Harnessing Heaven. And also we're going to talk about methods for spiritual expansion, because when you begin to align yourself a little bit further, you also begin to open up to the universe. And as you begin to become more aligned with everything, with energy, you flow a little bit easier, right? You reduce the blocks, the chakras open up, and you're in a better position to both help yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Roxanne?
Yes, I'm interested in the title of your book. You say Harnessing Heaven.
Right.
So you must.
Well, that's a great question. I hardly ever get that question. That's a really good question. And for this audience here tonight, it's very apropos, because what we are doing with our pendulums, the dowsing, is we're actually harnessing heaven right here now. We're not waiting to go into the afterlife to communicate with consciousness and spirit, and you're doing it right here, right now. Every time you take that pendulum out and it starts swinging, you're communicating with the heavenly forces. So that's how you get to the title, Harnessing Heaven, actually.
Right, and it's perfect and absolutely apropos to all of us, because we are harnessing heaven to solve multiple problems.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And you also did training in mediumship, I believe.
I did. You can't be in a spiritual circle for very long without being introduced both to psychic exercises, mediumship exercises, healing, and a lot of people are familiar with the different modalities of healing, whether it's Reiki or whatever have you. And so I consider myself to be a healing medium, actually. I can go into a trance state and heal, help others. But it's not me doing the healing. I just become the bridge, And
you also, in some of your other talks, you mentioned about having healing intention circles, where you join with people with the intention of sending healing, and that was part of your...
That's true, too. And anyone who's been exposed to a spiritual circle or to some of the healing modalities understand distance healing, and that's really all that was. But that's important, and the world needs a lot more healing, right?
And it's all using the power of intention, which dowsers used all the time as well.
That's true. Well, we can get to intention in a few minutes. I wanted to just go through the principles for clarifying your life purpose a little bit, so that people understand what the backbone of the book is, and then we'll branch out into the different areas here as it pertains to the audience. This all started really out of curiosity. I went there out of curiosity, and it became intention. If we want to talk about intention, I stumbled into the circle. I was curious. I wanted healing. And as soon as I realized there was something in it that was interesting, it became intention. Oprah Winfrey has a quote, it isn't until you come to a spiritual understanding of who you are, not necessarily a religious feeling, but deep down the spirit within, that you begin to take control. And so all of us dowsers, really, as you become more adept with the pendulum, you can begin to make better choices and hopefully take more control as well. I wouldn't necessarily say the rods, but the pendulum, I think, is a very powerful personal tool for spiritual development. And so the 7 principles for clarifying your life purpose is loving each other, thoughts and emotions are alive, the power of unity, school is never out, creating is always in season, the orchestra behind the scenes, and your thinking equals your experience. And so we'll just start briefly here on each one. We don't have to spend a lot of time on anything unless people have questions or if you want me to focus on something, Roxanne.
Go through it.
Yeah, so the first one's loving each other. It sounds pretty typical, but there's two keys for opening your heart, okay? That's where I think it's a little different. And that's acceptance for oneself, okay? As you begin to accept yourself in your own situation, you have the opportunity for a little more inner peace, okay? So it needs to start with us within, and then it can move outward. And the other one is tolerance. Tolerance for others, for other people. It helps us navigate our hearts a little bit, as you begin to tolerate others. Sometimes our egos get involved, all right? But those are two keys, acceptance for ourselves and tolerance for other people. And then, of course, loving each other. I will also tell you, everyone you meet is your mirror. It's your disposition, not your position in life. It helps to be objective, at least initially, so that you don't frame other people and other things. Love will raise your vibration. It helps open up your heart, and it ends up being the bridge that helps you connect with energy beyond the physical world. Okay. 2, thoughts and emotions are alive. Thoughts and emotions are real energy. I don't know how people use their pendulum, but I will tell you that every night after a hard day at work, after running around New York City, I take my pendulum out sometime between after dinner and bedtime, and I clear myself, okay? Because thoughts and emotions, thought forms, they attach to my energy field. And it's just like when you go into a room after maybe a heated argument, you can feel it. Some of us can feel that without even going into a room like that. And I can feel if I've picked up a lot of emotional debris during the day. Not always, but sometimes I can. So
well, it's just as important as taking a daily bath or shower. You're washing off the vibrations, and since you're working with people and you're in an urban area, it's critical to do that.
Yes.
And especially, you don't want to bring the energies from outside that are discordant into your home.
Mm-hmm. And
you also want to be able to clear those energies so you can sleep peacefully through the night.
That's right. I can't tell you how many times using my pendulum late at night has helped me go to sleep, where I might not have even been tired. I was so wired, but I get clear, and it's a new ball game. I go right to bed. So that's a way you guys can use your pendulums. The emotional issues from the day get stuck in our tissues, unless we release them. That's the bottom line. Our chakras can reflect our thoughts and emotions. They can close down. You can also use your pendulum to help release the stuck energy that's in your chakras. It's like releasing the past at times. And don't forget the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. It's all one, okay? It's all inside you, okay? Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because, and I noticed that on your notes, shall I say cliff notes?
Yes, sure.
that it's all connected.
Yeah.
Many times people in the spiritual community neglect their body, or they think it's not really relevant, but it's all part of a system.
Correct, and it does affect your vibration. And this is like the pot calling the kettle black, but what's that?
That's probably the point of yoga.
Yes.
Working with the body to open up the chakras and the ability, releasing the kundalini, allowing you to open up the spiritual centers.
Right. So we don't want to forget any of those three: physical, mental, and spiritual. The third thing we're going to talk about here is the power of unity. When we share, we have more. We tend, and I'm just talking generalizations here, I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but in general, society tends to focus on differences rather than similarities. It's a shame because it's an illusion that we're really that separate from each other. We're really all spirits, on the other side. And supporting each other helps our souls progress and develop. No religion has an exclusive formula. And ultimately, cooperation and collaboration is going to help our survival, okay? So there's power in unity. There is one quote in my book that, and I don't know if everyone will get this right away, but I say, the experience of the human condition is based on a false pretense of what society decides is right or wrong for its inhabitants. And if you were born in a different time in history or another culture, you would have a completely different set of false pretenses of what was important for its members of society. Okay, if you just think about that for a minute. You have all these people and all these cultures around the world right now that all believe that how they go about life is the right way, and they'll even go to war with other countries, right? But you could have been born anywhere, right? So it's kind of interesting when you really just let that sink in for a little bit. Fourth principle, school is never out. Our world is a school for the soul. Learning is a continuous cycle. Okay? We evolve, and we take back all of our experiences that we learn here in life back to the other side for others to learn. And so it's a continuous cycle. Okay? Life lessons and the opportunity for growth are always present. There can be a tug of war at any time between your personality and your soul. We can talk about that a little bit. Maybe that's a subject for another book. And sometimes the greater the suffering, the greater the lesson. Embrace your challenges because they help you evolve in life. Okay? Unfortunately, we learn more by losing. And as Wayne Dyer said, everything is either an opportunity to grow or an obstacle to keep you from growing. Okay? Just depends how you want to see it. Fifth principle, creating is always in season. Your soul is here on a journey, and that journey is different for everyone. Okay? So unless you can walk in another person's shoes, you really shouldn't judge a whole lot because you don't know what's going on with them. Everybody's here on a different journey. But while we're here, it's a co-creation between us and the spirit world. And we're here to create and manifest the intelligence that's within us, the soul, the spirit, okay? Follow your passion, and you may find your purpose. If you're not sure, take out your pendulum and ask a lot of questions. Okay, everybody understand that you can use your pendulum in a lot of ways. You can use it for healing. You can also use it to help guide you from day to day, from week to week. There's a 4-step process for intention I talk about. Know your purpose. Know what you want to accomplish. Set the intention. You can do this before bed at night when your mind is a little clearer and maybe it's open to these types of thoughts. They can sink in a little deeper. Remove all doubt. Really believe what it is you want to accomplish. Expect the desired results ahead of time, okay? And this is where I get into trouble personally, but don't get in your own way. Go with the current, the flow of life, even if it's just part of the way, Sometimes I like to anticipate, but you never know where life's really going to take you. Number 6, the orchestra behind the scenes. We are never alone. Spirit is always watching over us, okay? They're always watching. Every prayer is heard. So is every thought. Success is not defined by money. It's necessary to get by in society, but your success to the spirit world is not defined by money, but by your happiness and your ability to fulfill the purpose for which you've come to do. Okay? Number 7, your thinking equals your experience. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. We form our own reality, and we can create our life in different ways. You know, we're born with a blank canvas. How we want to paint it is up to us. Okay? Spirit will course correct us along the way to do things or give us hints as to where we may have an advantage or a competitive advantage, what purposes we came to do, but we still have that blank canvas. There's still a lot of creativity and free will. Okay? We can choose what thoughts we want to embrace, and those thoughts will help determine our fate. So what you think you are, you are.
Now, Cliff, when you are there some more before I enter? Were there any more on that, or is that all of the 7?
Those are the 7. I was just going to say, where you focus your mind is where you will go in life. You know, it's always about evolving, developing, expanding. You know.
Now, did you in the process of being in the spiritual circle and also studying mediumship, and were you in meditating, how much of this information came through that way as opposed to what other people told you?
Okay, so here's where I can bake your noodle a little bit. You know, very little of this came through the spiritual circle what anyone else told me. You know, we're digressing a little bit, but it's good that we are, because maybe I should have said this at the beginning. I didn't even believe that I could write a book, okay, much less a book that's won some awards and it got into Barnes & Noble and it's on Kindle and Amazon and all that. But I went to bed at night, Roxanne. I went to bed at night and I set the intention. And I woke up in the morning with an arm full of writing. Okay, so a lot of this was downloaded to me in my sleep. And I would get into the train. I commute an hour and a half to New York City every day. I live in New Jersey. And I would just start writing. And by the time I got to work, I really pretty much had nothing to write about anymore anyway, until I went to bed the next night and woke up in the morning. And I thought that was pretty crazy until I heard an interview on the radio. And Sir Paul McCartney wrote a lot of his famous songs that way, where he set the intention before bed, went to sleep, woke up in the morning with a melody. And a lot of those tunes are melodies, those songs are famous today. Rod Stewart also says that he did the same exact thing. He set the intention before bed and woke up in the morning and started writing. So there's something to that. There's something that goes on in our sleep where we connect, our subconscious does, to the other side. And that is how I pretty much wrote the book.
Yeah, I do that myself.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're bringing up the point for any of our listeners that the importance of setting intention before you go to sleep.
Right.
Unfortunately, I wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with a part of this.
Right. So we have at our disposal one of the best methods for spiritual expansion. It's dowsing. Okay, because you're working with the higher elements. You're working with higher vibration. And if you set the intention to expand your knowledge, to heal, to whatever it is you want to do, the spirit world will help you.
Well, I think because you had a serious health issue, you probably did something that I did, because I made it very clear that I would release all blocks known and unknown to my full healing. And I meant business. And, you apparently pulled out all the stops yourself because it was important.
Yes. And maybe I took out some of those blocks just meditating in the spiritual circle, perhaps, and then that kind of greased the wheels for other things to occur. But anybody can meditate or do yoga and also grease the wheels, if you will.
Well,
yeah. I was just going to say tuning forks, music, singing bowls, all, sound is very important also for the energy field, and that also can help clean it out a little bit, help the chakras open up.
My understanding is that when you have a clear intention of healing, then the forces of heaven come in automatically because of that intention. When you have a clear intention of being of service to someone else, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that's the whole point in doing some of this work, really, is to be able to share it and teach it and help others, and when you help another person, you help yourself too. You also raise your vibration. It feels good to help other people.
Lynn McTaggart, who wrote The Power of Eight, among other books, says that in the intention groups, what was so surprising was how blessed the prayers were, not just the recipient of the prayer. And so that surprised McTaggart.
That's very good. And everybody, I don't know, everyone's probably at a different level here, but, there's a lot of things you can do with your pendulum. If people are familiar with fan charts, you can do dowsing where it's not just a yes and a no answer, but if you use those fan charts, you can get sometimes answers that are somewhere between a yes and a no. I only mention that because if you want to use the pendulum to guide you spiritually, to open up, maybe you want to open up your chakras a little bit more, but you don't know which chakra needs the work, right? You can use charts, dows with charts.
A lot of us use charts. I wrote a whole book on.
Oh, okay, good. There's also, maybe I'm putting a plug in here, I don't mean to, but in the back of the book, there's also an exercise where you can test yourself emotionally, and it'll give you an idea of what chakras might need to be balanced, what chakras might need some work, okay? Because it's all about, raising the vibration so that you can do the work more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And when you meditate, you can sometimes hear an inner voice, or maybe you think you're talking to yourself, but that's how you sometimes hear spirit. When you quiet down, when you really quiet your mind, which you can do through meditation, you get closer to being your spiritual ideal, if you will, and you can tune out the noise.
Meditation, in order to be accurate in dowsing, you have to do precisely that. You have to quiet your mind and also go into an altered state.
It helps. Yes.
Meditation helps to train you in that, as does hypnosis.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with showing compassion, either for another human being or even if you have an animal, if you have a pet. That also helps to raise your vibration, helps to open up your heart a little bit, okay? Being good to yourself, right? Maybe having a little gratitude, appreciating life a little bit, or some of the smaller things that go on in your life, appreciating the opportunities you have. maybe find something each day to be thankful for.
So you also were going to talk about finding your path or your direction in life.
Well, I touched on it a little bit already that using the 7 principles for clarifying your life purpose help do that. But even just using your pendulum and asking a lot of questions is going to point you at a minimum in a direction that would be better perhaps than where you are right now, especially if you feel stuck. I'll give you
I have
7.
a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that your illness was in any way set up to push you in this direction?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I can tell you this though. I was in 9/11. So there's a lot of people that have cancer from 9/11. A lot of people died. So I lived through it. I lived in New York. I worked downtown at the time. I don't know if it was intentional, but it was certainly seized as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was certainly seized as an opportunity.
Yeah, and I like that attitude because the moment you have that type of attitude, it removes stress. Mm-hmm. And what I say is turn it into a blessing. And so then I start looking for a blessing that can come out of the problem. Mm-hmm. One of my dear friends and mentors was the president of Health Education AIDS Liaison, Michael Elner. And he said that of his the AIDS patients that he worked with, which at that time was a death sentence to have AIDS, that many of these men, and mostly men, said it was a good thing getting AIDS because as a wake-up call, mm-hmm. it caused them to look at how they were living their life. And it forced them to clean up their relationships, to get honest with their loved ones, their family, telling their family they were gay sometimes for the first time, getting rid of addictions such as drugs, having more monogamous sexual relationships, looking at spirituality, getting into healing and nutrition and a lot of other things. So and many of these men went on to live many years, or even went in reversed the AIDS diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. I think an illness like that, or any illness, even what I had, what it does is it speeds up time. It condenses all of your thoughts right to the moment, right to the present. Because you don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And so it forces you to do all that and to reflect.
Yeah.
And you're right. It can be powerful. It is powerful. Let me just go on to what I have as a 7-step process for a spiritual expansion. And mm-hmm. I say again that dowsing and using the pendulum is also a tool that we have that not everybody else can appreciate or understands. In the 7-step process for spiritual expansion, I talk about putting all your doubts aside and being open to possibility, because an open mind is a powerful receptor. Understand the connection between mind, emotions, body, and soul, because if one of these areas is out of alignment, it short-circuits the connection and power they have together. So we always want to strive for harmony. We want to learn to manage our outward and inward feelings a little bit. And recognize how we express emotion in order to hear the voice of God. We want to be authentic, be true to ourselves, know there's a higher power that loves you unconditionally for who you are and wants you to love yourself and others. Learn to meditate if you don't know how. Do it somewhat regularly if you can. But what's most important is to quiet the body so you can focus the mind with intention. Your mind is not your brain. and it's not limited to your body. If you can, join or create a spiritual development circle with others where you can practice meditation, raise your energy, raise your vibration, do some psychic exercises, and expand your spiritual awareness. Trust this process and those in the heavenly realm and have faith in a higher power. Okay? That will all help expand you spiritually. Okay? Does everybody know? I mean, I guess this isn't a two-way conversation, but we talk about a spiritual circle, what it is. And a circle is a reflection of the participants and the teacher who is leading it. And it's a circle, literally, and the energy from each person is linked together with that of others, forming a higher energy signature that can otherwise be attained if you were sitting alone. And then this energy is then used for helping each other to do the exercises for spiritual expansion. And if you can do that once a week for a few years, maybe you'll be writing a book as well. Okay, I did that for about 6 years, but I did it even longer. But
in your case, you were sitting physically with these people.
That's right.
At the same time, as opposed to, do you have any thoughts about the effectiveness of sitting physically together versus connecting on the internet or by phone or even meditating on the same thing at different hours?
That's a good question. I think energy can travel, but if you're a beginner, it's more powerful to be in the same room together. Okay? If you're a beginner, being in the room together once a week for 2 hours is going to work a lot better than being at home and trying to do it via the internet. Okay. See, what happens is after you're doing this for a period of time, your energy field starts to change. And then you're able to take on a little bit more, and you're able to send energy for healing, for distance healing. You're able to do other things. But at the beginning, certainly in the first year or two, it's a little more advantageous to be together in a room. And so my tips for building a successful circle, participants should meet weekly, be disciplined. There should be one person leading the group. You need at least 4 or more people, ideally 6 to 10, but at least 4. And you have to be of sound mind, free of recreational drugs or alcohol. Okay? Not saying you can't do it at other times, but you can't show up to circle like that. And you have to have patience with yourself and others because it takes a lot of time to develop your psychic senses. And
what other things help you to more clearly hear your spiritual guidance?
Was that a question?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Please repeat that, Roxanne. Sorry.
What things, other than sitting in meditation, helped you to develop hearing your spiritual guidance?
Okay, so, this may or may not be news to some people, but how you open up to the other side, the other reality, how quickly you do, how quickly you develop, unfold, evolve, a lot of that is not up to you. It's up to your guides. It's up to those who are working with you in spirit. Okay, so I guess part of it is discipline, intention, purpose, meeting each week. As you become more dedicated and committed to this work, I think that's where they step in and start, opening you up, either hearing, seeing, feeling, whatever gifts that you might have, that you may have brought with you from the other side when you were born. But that's how it opens up. You're opened up by the spiritual world. And so people may unfold at different rates. I never realized that. It was something I discovered over time. And if anybody thinks that's interesting or true or untrue, you can douse it right now. Okay?
How did you get into dowsing?
One of my teachers handed me a pendulum. I saw her working with it once, either before or after Circle, and I had some questions, and she helped me. And here in the New York area, we had a very fine teacher for many years, a woman named Ann Williams.
Right, I know her.
Who was a pioneer early on in some of this work, and I also attended her dowsing classes, and I was part of that New York City dowsing club that she ran for a lot of years. So that also helped, helped me learn dowsing and using the pendulum.
Yeah, it's too bad it's not functional anymore.
Yeah.
Jerry Adler wanted to keep it going, get it going again, but he just had surgery last week, and I don't know if he's going to. I have some Manhattan students who want to start a dowsing group. But I agree. It was a marvelous group. I spoke there once.
Oh, okay. Good. So everyone is an enlightenment center, okay? Everybody has a gift. We're all a little bit different, but everybody has something they can share with another and has something to work on here, okay? And man judges man, but God looks upon the heart, okay? And everything you do in life counts for something. And anyone can commune with heaven, because if you can douse, you can work with spirit.
Do you write down and then your thoughts and then go back with the pendulum and check them out?
I did that for the titles of the chapters, but not so much for the writing, because, again, the writing was some form of automatic writing. I'm not even sure how to describe it. If I sat down to do it right this moment, I couldn't do it. It would have to be something that was, downloaded to me while I was asleep.
I'm very aware that when I write, it's a group project.
Okay.
And there was one book I wrote on a whole self-hypnosis course called Your Unlimited Potential, and the one chapter on laws of mind I felt was very serious, and I went back line by line to make sure they were all accurate. And I've done that in some of my Reiki books as well, of where I felt it was, where it really touched on spiritual matters, and I wanted to make sure it was correct.
Okay. Yeah. You definitely can use dowsing for that. Absolutely. So there's
I've also used it, when you're talking about finding your soul purpose. I know that, I myself had a challenge recently, but I know a lot of people have challenges, and the question is the challenge to redirect you in another direction? And so then you can take a piece of paper and write down what you think is going on, and then douse out if it's
well, sometimes we create our own. Sometimes we just get in our own ways too. it's kind of hard to say that the spirit world put a challenge in front of you to, that's a tough call, and I don't know what the answer would be if you used the pendulum for that. I don't know. I know. I think most of us as human beings create a lot of our own problems. I think we do. And so Edgar Casey said, for the greater individual is the one who is the servant of all, and to conquer self is greater than taking many cities. To conquer self is greater than taking many cities. It's never-ending process to self-actualize and evolve.
Mm-hmm. So, what else would you like to tell us before we open it up to questions?
I would just say, listen, you know what? You form your own reality. We all live in our own worlds. Okay, it's very interesting how we all form our own reality, just the way we go about our thinking and our thoughts every day. And life is a process of discovery. It really is. Life is a process of discovery from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Fulfill yours. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can open it up to questions if you
Sure.
are ready.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if for our audience, you hit *6 and then start speaking. So if anyone has a question or a comment for Cliff, hit *6 and then start to speak. Who would like to ask a question? Go ahead.
I wanted to ask a question. Do you use the dowsing in your business life when you're making decisions and what you're doing for business and clients?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I wanted to know that.
Not all the time, but absolutely though. I do from time to time. From time to time, because I'm dealing with people's emotions and I'm dealing with so many factors, when doing financial planning and stuff. And that can get in the way of what the final objective really is or what the objective is. And sometimes I need a little clarity, sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. And so why not?
Yes. Well, thank you. That's
sure. Thank you. That's a good question. So, we can douse about anything. We can douse about the foods we eat, the vitamins we take, some of the decisions we make from day to day, whether it's in our personal lives or in our work lives. The spirit world is here to support us. They want to see us succeed.
Who else has a question for Cliff? Hit *6. Go ahead.
I'm curious about the top 5 regrets people have when dying.
Okay. That is in the book. Is that why I'm being asked? Or
it was in your notes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the top 5 regrets people have when dying, according to author Bonnie Ware, is number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a true life to myself. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was supposed to talk about that, but I'm happy to talk, about that.
You gave us that. You said it, and we posted it. Yeah, I think dying with regret is the worst. Must be the worst.
Yeah. I guess I may be guilty of number 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I think a lot of us do. How about this 4th one? I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends.
Yeah. Right. One of the things I read was that the relationships were so important for health, and maintaining those connections.
Yeah.
Is really important. Who else has a question or comment for Cliff? Hit *6 to speak. Somebody have a question or a comment? Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much. Excellent talk.
Thank you.
I recently went to Omega and met Anita Morjani, and then I've come home and had profound changes in my outlook about healing. But now I have found out about, have you heard of Dr. John Sarno and the TMS, which is tension myoneural syndrome, which Dr. John Sarno talked about. He worked in New York City for many, many years. Are you familiar with him? But he says so much of our illness and our pain, our chronic pain, originates from childhood, and to clear it through journaling. Do you have any thoughts on that journaling and revisiting all that pain to release it?
Okay, so, I know who he is. I don't follow him closely, but I am familiar with who he is. And what I think he's referring to are the issues that get stuck in our tissues, right? What I talked about earlier, that emotions and thought forms are real, and they are inside of us physically. And whether it's through journaling, meditation, healing, dowsing, whatever the modality or medium may be, it's to our advantage to release some of those deep-seated emotions that might be, in fact, causing us physical ailments. And I think it's true. I don't know if journaling is any more effective than anything else. I think there's a few ways that, I think a good healer, I think meditation, the pendulum, using that pendulum, you can clear yourself. It may take you months, but, if you're steadfast and disciplined, you can also clear out some of your chakras, just dowsing every day. And setting the intention and asking to be cleared.
I'll add that. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, you had mentioned also working with charts, so you could easily use a chart to find out what the root cause of the issue is, the problem that happened, who it was with, and then through intention just clear it out through the dowsing, and it's much faster than journaling.
I agree.
Thank you, Roxanne. I will use both. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very good.
Does anyone else have a question or a comment? Hit *6 to speak.
Hi, Roxanne. My question is to you as the chapter president. Has the date been set yet for the ASD convention next year?
Has the what been done?
The date for next year's convention.
Yes, it's June 3rd through 7th at Plymouth State University in Plymouth, New Hampshire. And I also can tell you that we have an agreement from Beverly Rubik to be our keynote speaker. And she is a scientist who is specialized in studying the science underneath energy healing, including Reiki.
Oh, cool.
So we're waiting for her to send back the contract, but she has agreed to be our speaker, and I believe she's going to be doing a workshop as well.
Okay, thank you, because somebody that was a vendor at the event had inquired of me, had I heard from you yet what the dates were, so she could put it on her calendar for next year.
Yeah, that's the date.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you, Cliff. I really enjoyed what you were speaking about tonight.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Cliff? Hit star 6 to speak. Who has a question or comment? Hit star 6.
Could you give us an example of a method of how to find your life purpose?
Well, I'll give you 2 examples. One is think about what you're passionate about, okay? And that's using your own intuition and gut instinct, okay? Which we all have. The second would be to use a pendulum and to, well, you're going to have to think about what the questions are, obviously. You can't wing that, but you got to think about that for a little bit, about what kind of questions you want to ask, because basically you're going to be looking for yes or no answers unless you have a fan chart. And then you want to phrase those questions so that you can lead these, so that when you get the answers, you can then be led to a point where you're in a different place than you are before you started, right?
Okay. All right.
I mean,
so
you know your likes and dislikes in life, right?
Sure.
And you know what you're passionate about, and you know what turns you on, and all that. So some of that could be a basis for developing questions. And of course, you want to also develop questions about whatever vocation or career you're in now. And as you combine some of these questions, you're going to be led to a place one way or the other. I mean, I can't do that for you, but I mean, if you know what I'm saying, you develop your own
I think I get it. Yeah.
personal schematic there, yeah. And you know, it may take you a few tries, but you can definitely make some ground there.
Okay.
Well, if you're talking about a vocation, let's start again. You can have a lot of interest, but the interest may not be vocationally viable.
That's true.
But nonetheless, your soul can still say it's an important thing for you to do. Mm-hmm. So you can take list your interests and then measure how much time you should be spending in that pursuit. So, for example, writing, teaching, music, you can have a list of things that are important to you, and then ask, well, is anything on the page here something I should be doing as my primary work at this point in time? And then how much time should I be spending on it? So for myself, I found that I should spend a certain percentage of writing and another percentage teaching and another percentage doing something else. So you can do that, but then the thing is that some part of your path might be at one point in your life you do one thing, and then another time you do something else.
It's very possible. I know that Spirit wants me to write 2 more books. So at some point I'll be giving up my day job.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good question.
Does anyone else have a comment or a question for Cliff? Hit star 6.
Yes, hi. I understand your illness is what maybe precipitated you to be involved, to be interested in dowsing. Did those healing circles help you in any way? How is your health currently?
My health is pretty good. Well, of course, those spiritual circles enabled me to heal in many ways, emotionally, mentally, clearing, and then ultimately physically. So absolutely, and I think it was a fast track being in the spiritual circle. It was a fast track. Could some of those results have occurred anyway? Yeah, over time, probably. But being in the circle, it really kind of fast tracked me a little bit. You know, it was 2 hours of lots of energy in that room, and it wasn't just us. It wasn't just the human beings.
Right.
And,
That's great.
You know, we all felt the healing that was going on in there.
Okay, great. That's great. I have another question.
Sure.
Like with the stock market, for example, I know you work in the financial field.
Sure.
Would you say you've used the pendulum to maybe tell you which stocks would be more profitable over others? Because, you know, I've always heard that you really shouldn't use dowsing, you know, for that kind of gain, like, say, with a slot
Yeah,
machine.
you know, if you're going to use your pendulum, it's best to use it for need rather than greed. Okay?
Right.
Better to use it for need rather than greed. If you're using it for greed, you can't trust the answers. Okay.
Great, thank you.
If you said made it clear that you wanted to make the wisest financial decisions for your family, for the good of your family, then you're dowsing not just for yourself, you're dowsing for the well-being of the family.
Right.
Then
So,
I think that would change.
Well, that's different, though. But that's a different question. That question that you just posed, Roxanne, is like, you know, would it be better to have a 20 or a 30-year mortgage? Would it be better to do this kind of a loan or send my son to this school or that? You know, and those are financial questions. But I think what that participant just asked was, can I use that pendulum to pick XYZ stock to make money, you know, to line my pocket?
But that stock, a windfall would be benefiting your family. That helps to put those kids through school. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, all right. Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I've had mixed results. I have found that when I douse to ask for other people to help them financially, those answers are more trustworthy than when I ask about whether a particular XYZ stock is going up or down. For me, I don't always get the right answer, or start spinning. It doesn't want to tell me. Doesn't want to answer. You know, so I tend to, you know, shy a little bit. But if it's for somebody else, I will usually get a good answer. So I guess you guys can ask me a question about what stocks you want to buy, and I'll douse, and maybe you'll get the right answer. But if you try it yourself, who knows? You know?
Maybe you should have your wife douse for your wife.
Right.
Are there any last questions for Cliff? Hit *6. Any last questions for Cliff? Well, again, I want to say that I really appreciate you coming on. I have also felt that dowsing is a phenomenal way to get spiritual guidance, and I use it daily for that purpose. It allows me to verify my gut level instincts and nudges to interpret much more correctly my dreams or inner promptings.
Right.
And then, of course, to heal, which then, of course, makes you a better recipient of that guidance.
Yeah, it's all true. It's all true.
So if you'll give out your contact information.
Sure.
Your website.
Yeah. So I'm on social media, on Twitter, Harnessing Heaven. On Instagram as Clifford.Michaels. Facebook, I have at least 2 or 3 Facebook pages, Harnessing Heaven, Clifford Michaels, and of course the website, harnessingheaven.com. And if you want to read more, it's a pretty cheap download on Kindle. I think it's around $5.
You also have a number of podcasts and articles on your website. If you look under the media,
there are a few. Yeah, there are a few.
Several.
But this was good too. Tonight was as good as anything. We really went over we went over really the most important points. If you want to dig a little deeper, then I would encourage you to visit some of those other areas on social media or get the book. That's up to you. Just learn your lessons so you're ready for what comes next. That's the bottom line. Keep learning so you're ready for what comes next, because there's always something coming next. That's the way life is.
Well, again, thank you so much, and I'm going to remind our listeners that next Monday, Raymond Grace will be on at a different and on Tuesday it's going to be Alicia Aronson on. Each call has a separate call-in information. So check the newsletter you should have gotten, and if not, it's also going to be on the Facebook page. So again, with this, I'm going to end the meeting and the recording, and I want to, again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you